Papua New Guinea immigration authorities are saying that no refugee or asylum seeker is in detention and that they're working to comply with the Supreme Court ruling last month that found detaining the 900 men on Manus Island breached their constitutional right to personal liberty. What's changed at Manus Island is that each morning a number of buses go from the detention centre, which is at a naval base on a neighbouring Los Negros Island, to the main town of Lorengau on Manus Island. Now, the detainees in the centre have the option to catch one of those three buses. They can go to the main town, they can move around, they can access food and alcohol, something they didn't have access to in the detention centre. And if they want, they can stay near to the town in a transit centre that's also operated by Papua New Guinea immigration authorities, where about 60 men are staying, those that were awaiting resettlement in PNG before this decision came down. There's also been some changes about the internal movement of men in the centre, and the men who've been found to be refugees can now mix with men in a neighbouring compound who've also been found to be refugees. But the detainees have told me those men can't go and see the men whose applications have been rejected and who are awaiting to know if they'll be forcibly sent back to their country of origin. They say there's still a number of restrictions on their movement inside the centre and that the guards don't let them just move freely between the internal compounds, and also that they're not allowed to just walk out the gates. So there's still certain detention-like conditions in place in the centre, and it's not clear whether or not this actually complies with the Supreme Court's instruction for the Australian and PNG governments to take all necessary steps to cease the continued breach of these men's constitutional rights. The Papua New Guinea and Australian governments remain in negotiations about the future of the centre. As I understand it, Papua New Guinea's position is that the centre needs to eventually close. Australia says that these men are Papua New Guinea's responsibility, and there's about 500 or so men who have been found to be refugees and who will need to be resettled in Papua New Guinea under the existing arrangements. The resettlement process to date has been quite problematic. Only about 8 men have accepted resettlement in Papua New Guinea, and of those, 3 have already returned to Manus Island, saying they were violently robbed where they were resettled in Lae, Papua New Guinea's second city, and that they didn't earn enough money to support themselves and get ahead. They basically say it's impossible for refugees to live in Papua New Guinea under the current resettlement arrangements, and it's been very difficult for the authorities here to convince more people to accept the offer of resettlement. So resettling more than 500 men permanently in Papua New Guinea, it looks like quite a challenge for both PNG and Australian authorities to convince those men to accept that, and it's not clear whether that's going to be any kind of sustainable long-term solution. As for the other men, the ones who are going to, the ones whose refugee claims have been rejected, it's not clear what will happen to them, whether they'll be able to stay in PNG in the long term under these new arrangements, or whether the Papua New Guinea government will push ahead with its stated position to close the Manus Island Centre and force the Australian government to take back responsibility for those men.